I saw in front of my house my auntie being carried to the hospital. I saw people gathered around. I'm like, what's going on? The trance just ended. I took my phone and called. And to confirm it, my mom says they were on their way to the hospital. My aunt is needing blood. They're taking her to the hospital. She's almost dying. I should pray. I only pray. And because I had prayed and I have seen, I was audacious in speaking the words I spoke to my mom. I said, she can't die. The blood of Jesus has already been supplied. I am saying all these experiences, these encounters in my few years on earth to say that don't ignore intercessory demands. The weight you feel may not be for you. It may even be for a village you have no idea about. Maybe for a community somewhere you can't tell. Don't ignore it. Let me also share this, right? I don't know if you experience this thing where, because the weight, when you talk about weight, it may not be like, it could be like something like, I don't know, if you could feel like a flame on your palm. Have you ever felt heat on your palm? That may be a physical sign, God awakening you to stand in for something, someone, your church or something. Don't ignore the demands in your spirits. A burden can be an intercessory demand. Coming down to my message very quickly because my time is almost out. It's still part of the message anyways. Burdens are spiritual pregnancy. Reverend already mentioned that in second service. Burdens are spiritual pregnancy, or what is termed a divine conception. A divine conception. You know, I've been pregnant before. You know, when Reverend mentioned told some single and married to come out to describe pregnancy. Unfortunately, the married men could not describe how pregnancy is. And the single guy is permitted because he's single. But the married have seen their wives pregnant, but could not describe it. You know why? Because what you are carrying, nobody else can understand it. Nobody. No two people have the same burden. Even if it's the same, it's not the same weight. I don't know how best to explain it. If me and you, two women, are pregnant with the same gender, we can't feel it the same way. And what that woman is pregnant with, even if it's a girl child, and I'm pregnant with a girl child, it's not the same destiny. So no matter how you explain your assignment to anyone, it's only you that know what you are carrying. The highest anybody will do around you is to support you. They can only talk. They can pray. But it's only you that know the weight of the assignments. You are the only one. No matter how many years, or rather, no matter the 9 months Reverend have seen me pregnant, he cannot understand why I should have cravings. He can't. You know, a couple came to the office one day and the man was complaining that the wife disturbs. She'll be asking for pizza, asking for that. I looked at him and I said, unfortunately, you don't know what it is to be pregnant. That's why you can complain. Yeah, so women overdo it. That's why you would call it overdo. Because you don't know what it is. Obviously, in second service, you could see it with married men that they don't know what it is to be pregnant. So when your wife makes craving, when she demands for certain things, you can't understand it because you don't know. You have never been pregnant. You know, I see some comments, I see some things. Some males will post caption and say, "Congratulations to us." You know, that's how it's supposed to be because it's an us thing. After all, if there was no man, would the pregnancy be there? But why is an us thing doesn't mean that the man really understands. When I was pregnant, damn, I remember that night when I was in labor. Before then, in the journey, I'll say, Reverend, I want to eat. I'll tell Reverend, I say, sweet, please, I want to eat a particular kind of rice. I used to see his face, so even if he finally buys it. I'll be like, I don't blame you. He finally bites, but I'll look at his face. He wants to grumble, but he will hold back because of the Holy Spirit. Many times it happens, I'll just look at his face. Then we didn't even have a car, so imagine he has to be walking down. I was a pastor. I remember one night, I didn't remember that day, we went out and I said, sweet, please, I need this particular. I said, can't we buy rice from here? What is there around here? I said, no, I want rice from one wheelbarrow like that. Firewood, you should smell firewood. I don't understand. I said, I don't understand. Then I head back. I'm going to say twice. I looked at him. Sometimes that's caused arguments between both of us when I'm pregnant. I'm like, someone are looking at Reverend. It's Reverend. I said, hey, nah, he wants to come here without hold back. He doesn't want to argument. Can't you eat this? What's the big deal? I said, please, help me buy. And he went to look for the firewood rice. The way I rushed it, even in his mind, like, even one of the days when he passed for like, what was it that? And the thing was tasteless. On a normal day, I won't eat such thing. But I ate it. Tasteless. He was looking at me wondering. He asked me, he said, what was in that rice? You can't understand what was in the rice. Because you're not the one who is pregnant. What am I trying to say? You see, when you carry a burden, there's what people have appetite for, you don't have it. When you carry a burden, what people crave for, you can't crave for it. Daniel had a burden when he entered Babylon. How people sleep, you can't sleep. I was somewhere retreating and I just put my phone on DND and a close friend of mine that was pregnant, she just gave birth. I got a message. She said, Only. I didn't even know she tried calling me. My phone was on DND. I needed to hear God. And then I put off my room from DND and I got her message. Around past 12 a.m. She said, I'm lonely. Everybody's sleeping. I'm so lonely. I looked at my husband, he's sleeping, snoring away. He said, I'm just tired, I can't wait. And I called her immediately. She was crying. She said, Pastor, I can't sleep. I've been trying to have heartburn. I have this. I'm saying this to say, when you carry a burden, because a burden is spiritual pregnancy. That's what I'm bringing into the physical pregnancy. When you carry a burden, when people are sleeping, you can't sleep. You can't. You can't sleep. Look at the story of Jesus. In the Garden of Gethsemane. The 3 people he carried out of his 12. They were sleeping. King James Version in Matthew 26 says they were sleeping from sorrow because they heard the prophecy. They were sorrowful about it. But they did nothing. They slept. But Jesus, who knew the cup he was carrying, couldn't sleep. You can't sleep. You can't. Even when you have you slept and you are talking, and somebody opens their eyes, sleeping by you and say you were saying refresh. You can't sleep. And listen, when you carry a burden, when God puts a burden in you, oppositions are part of it. Oppositions are part of it. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 25 to 28. Quickly. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 25 to 28. It says, 3 times I was beaten with rods. Apostle Paul had a burden for the church. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I have been in the deep. 26. In journeys often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the Gentiles. Do you see the peril? In perils perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren. 27. In weariness and toil, in sleeplessness often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, in cold and nakedness. 28. Besides the other things, what comes upon me daily, my deep what? Burden, consign. That's why he's experiencing this. Burdens. You can't, it's not, you can't carry, you can't fulfill the burdens of God without opposition. You see, when people receive prophetic word and they get excited and share, I laugh. But if prophetic words don't excite me, when God is giving you a weight that is weightier than my weight, when you weigh your scale, you know you have been on 60-something kg for how many years? The weight of the assignment cannot be compared to your weight. It doesn't even look like your size. Before we had bank accounts. Then before we had the people who don't like you on the journey. The people who have had to discourage other people. Do you know what I've experienced during Refresh Store? You go to African countries. Somebody who is trying to be funny. Let's not even go far. Within one of the persons volunteering for one of the cities, I don't want to mention names, and then her mentor called her and said, "No, you are connected to this woman. You can't shine in our side. You are connected to her. You are making it work. Doing everything they can." The team brought issues. Is it traveling? Is it me being in US? My South Africa flyer has been out. And then this is me coming from Canada 2 days before, or rather a night, back to US. After being stressed out, flying from one state to another in US, ministry. And then I flew to Canada, came back, and then a night too. I went to whatever, stayed up, doing all manner of things, doing meetings upon meetings. And then I was on my way to the airport. Got to the airport, waiting for my flight to first Atlanta, have the layover, and then waiting for my flight to Lagos. So that I can leave the next day. When I time I land, I just have a night in Lagos to go to South Africa because I must land in Lagos. And then I get a call at my boarding gates. Mama, I've been trying to reach you. What's up? He said that the venue that we got for Refresh South Africa, that once later there are issues that we will not be able to use the place. This was Tuesday. Refresh South Africa was Saturday. And I sat down and I said, God, if I don't do this thing, nobody will kill me. Mixed feelings, uncertain things. I was fed up. From one to another. I'm like, God, you pray for finance. Now you have gotten here. It's now this thing. I said, God, what am I going to do? Well, you see, listen. I'm saying this particular experience or instance to say that, listen, even though a burden is original, you may not be able to manifest what God has given you because of the how you handle it. Listen, even if the assignment God has given, the burden, is not copy and paste, not somebody's own, it is the one God has given, is original. You may not be able to fulfill that God has placed in your heart by how you handle it. Burden is a seed. How you handle it makes it a fruit. Burden is a seed. So when you pray and say, God, give me nations. It doesn't mean you will not have nations. And he says, you know what, go here into the world and do this. It doesn't mean you will not have it. Because burden is a seed. How you handle it is what brings the manifestation. It's what brings the fulfillment. It takes spiritual maturity to handle burdens. Spiritual maturity. And listen, spiritual maturity is not in how long you've been coming to church, it's how much you have grown. You can come to church for long, but if you are not grown, you can't handle. It's a weight. You can't handle it. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 11, quickly. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 11. It says, when I was a child, I spoke as what? A child. I understood as a child. I taught as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish. What makes you children? What makes you childish? It is in how you what? Speak. How you understand things. How you think. So listen, when God puts a burden on you, how you speak, how you understand, how you think can make it not fulfilled. Maturity determines fulfillment. Childishness don't bring fulfillment. Maturity. That's what Apostle says. I put away childishness when I became. Because when you grow, you are no longer a child. But when you don't grow, you remain a child. If you look at the story in Numbers 13 about God speaking to Moses and telling them to go into the land and possess it. He said, send spy to the land of Canaan. He selected the men that they should go, including Caleb and Joshua. This is the story tells you how children speak and how they understand. What happened? He said, when they departed, go down to verse 26, Numbers 13. Quickly, just do a quick read. When they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron, they went, and all the congregation of children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. 27. Then they told him and said, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. 28. Nevertheless, this is how children speak. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. 29. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. 30 quickly. Then Caleb, these other people, this is what they saw, right? They saw giants, people that are mightier than them. Remember, God had already given them the land. When God gives a prophecy to it, has been given. It is for you to behave so you can see it manifest physically. So they went, this is what they saw. You know, everybody sees differently. So God can give you how you see it, what matters. Reverend said it in second service. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, they came back when they saw. Caleb quieted the people before him and said, let us go up at once and take possession. For we are well able to overcome it. 31. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able. We are not able to go up against. You see, Reverend mentioned it in second service. The 10 spies came back with a childish response. You know what their childish response? They glorified flesh above God. Because every time you see, I cannot, it means that you were trying to fulfill something out of your own strength. There's something called human strength, something called divine strength. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger. This is it, a wrong identity. A wrong identity. No matter how gigantic the vision is, can never be stronger than the God in you. They are stronger than we. There was already an error with their identity. Because you see, spiritual maturity is one who has been able to accept what he has, what he carries. 32. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. What you think of, what you understand is how you speak. You see, your understanding and your thoughts is what brings about your speech. The land through which we have gone as spies, a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. 33. There we saw the giant, descendants of Anak, came from the giant, and we were like, can you imagine that?